Okay, hello, greetings and salutations. My name is Jay Killian. I look after what we refer to as our AI for networking team for the central US, which is essentially our wired and wireless portfolio managed in the cloud. Prior to joining Juniper and now HPE, I spent roughly 12 years at Cisco, 7 of those with Meraki. Prior to that, I spent the first half of my career as a customer, but I want to take you back even further to the very first real job that I ever had. Like my first real high school job. I spent 3 years wandering these aisles. Anyone recognize what this is? Yes, it's the legendary Blockbuster video. This was my high school job in Wichita, Kansas. And the interesting thing to me about Blockbuster is they're not remembered for the absolute stranglehold that they had on the video rental empire. What they're remembered for is that within a span of less than 18 months, they went from market dominant leader to bankrupt because this little startup came along called Netflix. And when people think about this takeover, like how did this scrappy little startup come in and absolutely upend this ingrained behemoth? What people most often picture is they picture this. They picture streaming video, and they're like, yes, of course they took out Blockbuster. They introduced streaming video, but this is not the technology that Netflix used to unseat Blockbuster. Does anyone remember the technology that Netflix used? I heard it. It's not DVDs. The United States Postal Service. The technology that Netflix used to unseat Blockbuster was technology that was over a century old. My insider opinion, this is just my opinion, but I'm going to tell you why, after working for 3 years at Blockbuster, why I believe Netflix was so successful, why they were able to unseat the incumbent using the United States Postal Service. I believe that Netflix simply asked the most important question for any company to ask: what is the outcome that my customer wants? And in the case of Blockbuster, well, the outcome is I want to be sitting on my couch on a Friday night watching a movie. That's the outcome. Well, what are the steps that you have to go through to reach that outcome? Well, I get off work on Friday night at 5 o'clock, and I have to fight traffic just to get to my local Blockbuster. I get there, and then I have to roam the aisles and hope against hope that last copy of Meet the Parents is still in stock. I get that movie, and now I wait in this agonizingly long line just to get to the front and find out I have a $3.18 late fee. I drive home, and I'm finally at my outcome. I'm on my couch, I'm watching a movie, but I'm still not finished because I have to wake up the following morning and by 10 a.m. drive back to Blockbuster and drop that movie off, or else I get another $3.18 late fee. And I believe Netflix simply asked the market, what if we could give you that same outcome? You're sitting on your couch Friday night and you're watching a movie, and we can get rid of all the parts of that experience that you hate. And the market obviously responded with an overwhelming yes. And that's the best analogy or example that I could think of to describe where our industry is today. For the vast majority of customers, this architecture, this is the Blockbuster of our industry. For over 20 years, if you were any sort of a large enterprise or large K-12 or higher ed, you have used an architecture regardless of vendor. It looks something like this. You have access points, and those access points are managed by controllers that you go and deploy and stand up and make redundant. And then those controllers probably have other controllers that are sitting on top of them. And you end up managing your infrastructure through these boxes where it's incumbent on you to go and deploy them and keep them upgraded and all stitched together. And this architecture has served our industry extremely well, but it's long in the tooth, to the point every major vendor has already said the future is cloud. Every major vendor has already said there will always be a component of our customer base that needs on-prem boxes. People that are in regulatory environments, you need an air-gapped type of environment. But for the vast majority of customers, the future is cloud. What I want to tell you about today is that with HPE, we have that offering 100% cloud-based for any customer, any size, and any complexity. But before I get there, let's first chat about this acquisition that you've likely heard of. Roughly 9 months ago, HPE completed their acquisition of Juniper. I thought this picture was appropriate. If you've seen this movie, it's two mortal enemies coming together. This is what I have felt like. This is what many of us have felt like, that our stiffest competition, I came from the Juniper Mist side, our stiffest competition, hands down, was Aruba. And now all of a sudden we're bringing these two highly competitive offerings together. So what does that mean for these two portfolios? Well, let me first take a step back. I want to introduce you to two individuals that are in the executive leadership for our combined Aruba and Mist business unit. And I say combined because this is important. We're less than 9 months into this acquisition. We have already combined our sales, our marketing, our engineering, our support. We have taken all of these teams that operated completely independently, and we have already brought them all together. And these are two individuals from the executive leadership side, now looking after both Mist and Aruba. I want to introduce you to them because first, Bob Friday, he's our Chief AI Officer. Sujay, he's our Executive Vice President, looks after the full portfolio. These two have worked together for a very, very long time. If you're not familiar with Bob Friday, Bob is the Gandalf of the wireless world. And not only was he part of like the original team that created the 802.11 spec, he started a company in the late 90s called Airspace, which was purchased by Cisco. Everything that you know of today that is Catalyst Wireless, it came from the company that Cisco bought from Bob. Bob became the CTO of Cisco's enterprise networking business unit, all things wired, wireless, and WAN. And he was joined by Sujay. Sujay was Cisco's executive vice president that looked after their crown jewels, all things wired, wireless, and WAN. This is the team that in 2012, they led the acquisition of this little startup called Meraki. And their original intent was to take all the robust, resilient, enterprise-grade goodness that lived in the world of Catalyst wired and wireless and marry that together with the cloud, the simplicity, and all of the automation that came with Meraki. And after looking under the covers, Bob, Sujay, and Cisco's brightest engineers, they came to the same conclusion. Those architectures are so different. It's like trying to build something stable when half your pieces are Legos and half of them are Lincoln Logs. They're just diametrically opposed. And so they sent shockwaves through Cisco. They decided to leave and start something new. Bob's idea and Bob's premise was this, that if he could start with a clean sheet of paper, that he would be able to create the industry's first and only real enterprise-grade, fully cloud networking solution that was still easy enough for the SMB, the mom and pops, the very, very small branches. But it would also be resilient and robust enough for the Fortune 5. Fast forward to today, by any measure, it's been an overwhelming success. This is the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant, which was released less than a month before the acquisition. For the fourth consecutive year, you have Mist in the pole position, leader of leaders for all things wired and wireless. Number 2, once again, you have Aruba, which now holds the current record for most concurrent years in the leadership quadrant for wired and wireless. So we're now taking the Gartner confirmed number 1 and number 2 solutions for wired and wireless and bringing them together as one. And so the number 1 question that I hear from customers over and over is, which one are you getting rid of? You're obviously not going to keep both of them. So which one of them are you going to be getting rid of? And here's the really quick and easy answer. Neither. If you are an Aruba customer and you've invested in Aruba and you're happy with Aruba, you are on a safe path. And if you are a Mist customer and you've invested in Mist and you're a happy Mist customer, you are on a safe path. What you're going to see with these 2 architectures is a cross-pollination where they grow closer and closer together until they harmonize as one. I'll show you how. First, when I tell customers that, almost always the next response or question or comment that I get, when I tell customers this, that our realistic plan is that within 5 years, we plan to have a fully unified, there will be one interface, one architecture, it will be one unified solution. They look back at me and say, you're out of your mind. Cisco is 13 years post Meraki acquisition, and they're maybe 10% of the way integrated. You still have 2 platforms that have very, very different capabilities and integrations, and you're telling me you're going to do it in 5? How are you going to do that? And here is the really, really easy answer is we are incredibly fortunate, lucky that both our architectures and the one place they overlap, which is cloud, the one place that we overlap, which by the way, if you want on-prem, we have Aruba controllers. They are best in breed. We don't have that in Mist. Mist is cloud native, only cloud. But the one place that we overlap, Aruba Central Cloud and Mist Cloud, they both use a common microservices architecture. What that means is that we will very easily be able to develop functionality once and then cross-pollinate to both platforms. Let's unpack that for just 1 second. What is it about microservices that makes it special? And why was our cloud platform built on a microservices cloud? And why didn't we follow what Meraki did? Meraki's running on a shard architecture. They did that in 2007. It's what they're still running on today. Why did we not do that? And why did we instead use the kind of architecture that's used by Netflix and Google? Here's why. Historically, most legacy code uses what's called a monolithic architecture. And here's what that means. You have an incredibly long line of code, thousands and thousands of lines. And when you need to patch a security hole, or you want to add a new feature or new functionality, you go and you change line 783. And you hope that that doesn't break line 12,928. That's monolithic code. And it's why most customers that are running on legacy architectures, they will upgrade their code once, maybe twice a year, usually in the middle of the night on a Saturday, and almost always holding their breath and hoping that things go well because what they're using runs on monolithic code. Now, compare that to microservices, the architecture that both Aruba Central and Mist run on for our cloud. Microservices means this: every single service can be started, stopped, and patched independently of everything else. Think of it like this. This is going to be the easiest example that I can think of. If you consider your smartphone, and you have all these different apps on your smartphone, if your LinkedIn app needs to be updated, it has zero impact on your Google Maps app. If Netflix has a bug, if that app, if it has an issue, it has no impact on your ability to make phone calls or send texts. This is the beauty of a microservices cloud, and this is why every other week we push new innovation, we push new functionality. Last year, 15 major updates. We had 15 major releases with zero downtime and zero disruption. This is literally why some of the largest, most mission-critical companies on the planet are finally able to use cloud networking because of this architecture. The largest shipping and logistics company in the world, they like to remind us that 4% of the United States GDP flows through their shipping infrastructure every day. And so this cloud had better not go down. They have been an extremely happy customer now for well over a decade because we're using a microservices cloud. So if microservices is going to enable us, it's going to allow us to be able to do this cross-pollination, what I want you to know very, very clearly is I'm not talking about a future that we're hoping will someday be able to do. We are less than 9 months into acquisition. We have already begun this cross-pollination process. We have already combined our engineering, our support. We have already taken things like, we have a large experience model in Mist. This is an AI model that has been trained on literally over 1 billion minutes of video calls. We have native integration with both Zoom and Teams. And so we pull full telemetry from both Zoom and Teams and marry that together with our infrastructure telemetry so that when you get a call from your executive that says, last Thursday I was talking to the board and video quality was awful, what happened? Well, you can look back at last Thursday and not just see what was going on the network, but you see actual client to cloud, and all of that data has been used to train our large experience model, which enables you to not only be able to historically see how did video perform, but also predictively know our network is currently in a state where it can accommodate video calls with no impact and no interruption. And this is now actively being ported over to Aruba Central. I'm going to talk about this next one in just a minute, Marvis Actions. I'll show you what that is, but that is already being ported over to Aruba Central. And then coming in the other direction, our product teams are asking customers on both sides, what are the killer features? Like what are the things that you love about Central? What are the things that you love about Mist? And then they're prioritizing cross-pollinating those. And so on the Aruba Central side, they heard again and again, Aruba has this incredibly powerful AI-based client profiling where it will know with a high degree of certainty, not just what this device is, but what version of OS is it running. So that is being ported over to Mist. And then if you haven't used Aruba Central before, they have a really unique and interesting, they call it a sunburst view. And it's a really unique way to look at your entire organization, their structure. Customers love it. And so we are actively porting that over to Mist as well. And I show you this because if you hear nothing else that I say today, if you walk away with nothing else, what I want you to hear is this. If you are an Aruba customer, you are going to get everything that you were promised and more. If you were a Mist customer, you are going to get everything you were promised and more. Neither product is being sunset. Rather, we now have two incredibly talented engineering teams that are working in tandem to cross-pollinate what has already been working really, really well, and then going forward to develop features once and then deploy twice. And you could think about this like, statistically speaking, half of you in this room are using Android and half of you are using iPhones. Actually, it's a little bit more slanted, but you get the idea. If I were developing an app, if I was making the LinkedIn app, you could pull it up on an Android phone and an iPhone. They're going to look identical because the developers spend 95% of their time building it once and then 5% deploying it twice. We are in the exact same boat. As these two architectures grow closer and closer together, you're going to see cross-pollination. And then one final note on this, we have already released our first unified AP. Again, less than 9 months into acquisition, it's already orderable. Our first dual boot AP, where if you are a Central customer, you boot into Central. If you are a Mist customer, you boot into Mist. The reason that we released that has nothing to do with customers being able to flip-flop between clouds. We don't expect anyone to be actually doing that. Rather, it gives us a common set of hardware to be able to develop features and functionality against. So it makes that cross-pollination effort that much faster and that much more robust. And both of these platforms, they are both underpinned by our best-in-breed AI engine. It's what we refer to as Marvis, and I'll chat about that in just a moment. But the same conversational assistant that powers Mist, this is now being leveraged within Central as well. Okay, so where are we going? What do we think the future is? If you were to invest in one of these two platforms, either one, what is the future and where are we going? We believe that for our industry, the future is self-driving networks. Now, the easiest analogy, the easiest example that I can give is of Waymo. You've likely seen them driving around. Actually, I know they're in Austin, and I live in Dallas. Are they here in Houston? I see. Okay, so you've likely seen them driving around. Over 500,000 unmanned trips are taken every single day, where they have now been trained on over 200 million miles of real-world road conditions, and they are now, statistically speaking, they're 85% safer than a human driver. The world is moving to autonomy and self-driving, but this isn't a perfect analogy. We don't actually think this is where the network's going to go, where you don't have a network team anymore. We think it's a lot more like what you see already on airplanes. If I went to get on an airplane and there was no pilot, I'm not getting on that airplane. And your network engineering team should be the exact same way. If I'm running an infrastructure, there's no way I'm not having that team. They're just focused on different tasks. The better example is an airplane. If you've ever landed in low visibility, you've flown on a self-driving airplane. In low visibility, a pilot legally cannot touch the controls. They can't touch the throttle or the rudder or the flux capacitor or whatever else. They have to take hands off and let artificial intelligence, let that machine land itself, because there is a degree of precision that even incredibly highly trained and very, very capable pilots cannot achieve to the level of artificial intelligence. There's still a pilot, but there are also conditions where they take their hands off and they let the plane land itself. This is where we believe the industry is moving towards. And we've been on this journey. This isn't something where we're moving from a world of like on-prem controllers, and now all of a sudden we're going to try and just jump into self-driving. We've been moving on this path of autonomy for years. Let me give you, let me start with a real world example of where we started. In my prior life, before I joined the vendor side of the house, spent first half of my career as a customer. My last role, I was the network manager for GameStop. This was pre-meme GameStop, so didn't get wealthy off of any of the stock explosion, unfortunately. But when I was looking after the infrastructure team at GameStop, we had an issue in our warehouse, and it's this massive warehouse in Grapevine, Texas, multi-floor. It's huge, and we had what I would call one of the most difficult kinds of issues for an engineer to troubleshoot. We had an issue that was this. First, it was sporadic. So we didn't know when it was going to occur. We couldn't reproduce it. So we were at the mercy of this issue occurring. And number three, it was incredibly impactful. And the worst part, all of our dashboards said that the network was healthy. All of our little jelly beans looked green. And yet our users, the people that were actually connecting to the network, their response was, I don't care what your tools say, our experience is bad. And in my case, this is what that meant. It meant that I had my senior wireless engineer, gentleman named Matt Guzman. I sent Matt out to our warehouse. We needed to get a packet capture and figure out what is going on. And so Matt, we had to spread word throughout this warehouse. When the issue is occurring, you just need to yell out, "It's happening!" And then Matt would grab his laptop and go sprinting across the warehouse to try and get that packet captured. 2 weeks. I had Matt sitting on a metal folding chair in the middle of a warehouse for 2 weeks before he was able to get that wireless packet capture. And if I fast forward to another customer that had a very, very similar issue, but this time, instead of using the same type of legacy controller-based architecture that I was using at GameStop, they were now, they now moved to a modern cloud-based architecture. This is a picture of the largest e-com company in the world. You can guess who that is. And they have these massive, massive warehouses with these robots that go flying up and down aisles. And they were having issues where connections were dropping and they were losing inventory. And after spending months of troubleshooting with their legacy incumbent and coming up short on what was causing it, they eventually said, "Hey, let's give this AI stuff, AI cloud networking a try." And so they put our solution in. The first week, the very first time that the issue occurred, our platform, straight out of the box, with no additional license, no additional subscription, no special troubleshooting, it automatically saw, hey, there was a device that just tried to do a roam and it didn't follow standards, and it grabbed that packet capture. Now, they hadn't told it to grab the packet capture. They hadn't put in any special, hey, we're going to filter to this MAC address and look for it and do this. They simply installed our gear, and day one, out of the box, automatically grabs that and it's not just roaming. If DNS is taking a long time to respond, if DHCP isn't giving you an IP address, if ARP isn't working, these are all things both pre and post connection. The platform automatically grabs that packet capture. And this example, by the way, it wasn't wireless. Like the legacy incumbent, the controller-based solution, it was working just fine. It simply lacked the tools and insight to give proper visibility to figure out what the problem was. The problem was a driver issue on these handhelds where they weren't following standards when they roamed. When Amazon sent this packet capture, when they sent it off to Zebra, who they were using for handheld scanners, their support, their response back when they saw the packet capture was, "Holy crap, how did you get a packet capture of an in-flight fast roam? That is something that takes milliseconds. And in your environment, that is the definition of a needle in a haystack." And that is one of the things that AI does better than any human can, is it consumes copious amounts of data, makes those connections, and finds the needle in a haystack. So this is something we released this back in 2016. So we do this exceptionally well. In fact, the biggest thing I'll say about this is we do not have false positives. If our engine captures, if we grab that packet capture, if we bubble something up, you will not be chasing ghosts, because this engine has been honed over the past decade. But then we kept going. This was an idea that came to us from a customer, Fortune 1. Fortune 1, they have standardized on our cloud networking platform. They are raving fans. They said, "We love dynamic packet capture. It has saved us so many times, but there's one real problem. The problem is it only works when people are in the building. Like when something's wrong, when something's not working, it's dependent on a user trying to get an IP address or trying to resolve a DNS address or trying to get out to the internet. That's when your platform is aware that something's wrong and it grabs the packet capture and it tells us about it. But what about when our stores are empty? Or for those of you in education, what about over spring break or summer break or Christmas break? Or what about when you come in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday and you make firewall rule changes? How do you know that on Monday, when students return, when customers show up to your store, when employees return to the office, how do you know that things are still going to work as expected? If you're anything like me and my team, like we were at GameStop, we had extensive ping scripts and a whole line of tests that we would do. But at the end of the day, we also crossed our fingers and held our breath and said a prayer and hoped that come Monday morning, when people come in, that things are still going to work. Enter in Marvis Minis. I'm showing you something that is available today on Mist, and this is already being actively cross-pollinated over to Aruba Central. So here's what Marvis Minis are. This was our first step into the world of agents and running agentic AI. This is an autonomous agent that runs natively on Mist access points, on Mist switches, and it imitates a user. This runs both on demand, but it also, most customers, they schedule it. Hey, 2 in the morning, run this every single night. And what these Marvis Minis do is on every single VLAN, without you having to configure them or tell them anything, they automatically discover, okay, this is a trunk port and we have XYZ VLANs. On each of these VLANs, I'm gonna see, can I get an IP address? Is DNS resolving? Can I still get out to the cloud? You can even put in your own web servers, and they'll send an HTTP GET. Not just a ping, but is this web service still working? And if anything isn't working, it does 2 things. First, it sends a notification to all of its neighbors. They run that same test. You now know not just what is wrong, but the blast radius. Is it wrong everywhere? Is it not working everywhere? Is it just this one site, just this one floor? And then they notify you so that you are aware before anyone even comes into the office. So that is this is where we're coming from. Oh, by the way, one last thing on this. This Marvis Minis. This is a spectacular example of microservices and the advantage that it brings. This is a fantastic example. We launched this a little over a year and a half ago. And this is something where our customers, they went to bed one night and they didn't have this. And they woke up the following morning and they did. 0 downtime, 0 disruption. They didn't actually do anything. They simply woke up and this was there. They didn't have to deploy any additional controllers. There were no agents, physical agents that they had to go and stand up. This was just deployed. This is the kind of magic that just shows up, and why I will say again and again, when a customer is investing in an architecture, it's not just a point in time decision. Who's number 1 today? Who has the best features today? You're gonna own that for the next 5 to 7 years. What you are buying is a tap into an innovation stream. And so the question is, which innovation stream are you tapping into? And what we now have with the combination of Aruba and Mist is we have the innovation stream that every other vendor is looking at and is actively, legitimately copying, because it's that good. Okay, so what's the future? What's coming next? What about this world of self-driving? This is the screen here. This is something called Marvis Actions. If you haven't seen this before, this isn't yet in Central, but this is part of our alpha where it's being ported. This is actively coming over to Central, and it's something that we've had since inception in Mist. The whole idea and premise is this, this AI engine is looking through all of your logs, all of your alerts, looking at everything in your organization that you could be spending time troubleshooting, that you could be spending time working on, and then distills all of that down and says, hey, of everything that you could be working on, these are the things that are impacting more than just one single user. There's a VLAN that's missing on this trunk. And so you have users that are trying to get an IP address and they're not, and a host of other things. And it does this exceptionally well. But there's one problem. It just tells you about it. It just tells you that there's a problem, but it doesn't fix anything. It's incumbent on you to go in and actually do the fixing. So what does it mean for us to begin moving into this world of self-driving? Let me go one more. Forgot that built. So let's go one more. So this is what Marvis Actions. This is what it looks like within Mist. This is what's being ported over, and so you have all of these different things that the AI engine bubbles up. And actually, my favorite one, the one that from an engineering perspective makes me the most happy, is it will, with 100% accuracy, it will tell you if there is a bad cable. There's a digital fingerprint that traffic makes when there's a bad cable, and it will tell you with 100% accuracy that a cable is bad. Now, I know we've been able to do TDR tests for years. You can do a TDR test and it will tell you the structural integrity of a cable, but there's two problems. First, it bounces the port. It's impactful. And number two, it's a reaction. It's something that you have to do in the process of troubleshooting. This AI engine with 100% accuracy proactively will say, hey, on switch port X on this specific interface, you have a bad cable, and it's never wrong. But here's where we move into the world of self-driving. If you notice this sidecar over here, I will describe this as an analogous to your car, where you drive it, and as you feel comfortable, you can turn on adaptive cruise control. Or in some cars, you can turn on self-parking or things like that. But it is your decision, and as you become comfortable that, yes, this engine, it's going to make the right decisions. It's going to make the same decision that me or my team would make if they were making the correct decision. And as you begin to gain confidence, you can click a button, and it's not an all or nothing. Okay, now it's self-driving for everything. You get to turn on features and functionality. And before I go to this next part, let me say this. Already up on YouTube, right now taking place is something called Mobility Field Day. If you're not familiar with it, it is our industry's, the Met Gala or Gaia or whatever. This is like where all the wireless vendors come out and just talk about, here's what's coming. So this has actually gotten a lot bigger, but for today, what you can see that is available right now is an example of being port stuck. If you're not familiar with a port stuck condition, it's what happens commonly with an IoT device. It's something where the port has link, it's up, but there's zero traffic going over that port. It's a port stuck. So the way you resolve it is you either go and bounce that camera, or it's a badge reader, or it's something. You either go bounce that device, or you bounce the port, and our platform will tell you that there's a problem. And as you gain comfort, you can click a button and say, yes, keep telling me that there's a problem, but just go ahead and fix it. Just go ahead and bounce the port. Go ahead and restore service. Now, there are guardrails. It will try 3 times. If it tries it and then it comes back, it tries it and it comes back, it tries it and it won't lock up into an infinite loop. And that is an important part when you get into the world of self-driving is there are conditions where you need the human to know, hey, I've tried the automated way. We need human help. But like what we just announced yesterday is now things like a rogue DHCP server. We can detect with 100% accuracy if there is a rogue DHCP server on your network. And we can not only alert you of it, we can go ahead and quarantine that port. We can go ahead and shut it down so that it's not impacting other users. If you have a trunk and it's missing a VLAN, so you have users that are trying to get an IP address and they can't because that VLAN isn't allowed, well, right now we'll tell you about it. But what we just announced yesterday is you can click a button, say, hey, just go ahead and fix it. Yes, alert me, but add that VLAN so that service is restored. So what are the results? What would we expect and what should you expect? And I'm going to wrap in the next few minutes, but what should you expect if you're currently running like a lot of customers? You're running a legacy controller-based infrastructure. What should you expect in moving to a modern microservices AI native, cloud native offering. Well, these aren't my slides. These belong to the CIO of ServiceNow, a gentleman named Chris Betty. Roughly 6 months ago, this is what Chris presented to his board. When Chris was presenting to the board for ServiceNow, his response, his testimony was this. And moving from a legacy controller-based a Cisco architecture and moving to a modern cloud-based solution end-to-end, this is what ServiceNow is now running on for wired, wireless, WAN, and NAC also, because by the way, we have some incredible cloud-based NAC. And I'll just say this real quick, like Best Buy, they decommissioned 24 physical servers and moving from ICE to full cloud-based. It's powerful. So ServiceNow, they're running on all of this cloud-based. And Chris got to tell his board that in leveraging cutting-edge AI, that ServiceNow, we've been able to see an over 70% reduction in network OpEx, 90% reduction in wireless trouble tickets. If you're a ServiceNow customer, go to the ServiceNow App Store. They have developed 3 different apps. We don't own them. They built these. They have some really, really slick native integration into our platforms so that when issues occur, they will automatically hook into ServiceNow, automatically create the notifications, the SLAs, the escalations, on and on and on. And it's not just ServiceNow. This is one other example. This is the lead architect for Costco. When he was presenting to his peers, what did it look like for them to move from a legacy Cisco architecture over to a cloud native architecture? Costco, 42,000 APs. His testimony, we have seen a 90% reduction in wireless trouble tickets. There are all sorts of vendors that will stand up and tell you, move to our solution and you're going to have fewer trouble tickets. Ask them which customers they're quoting. And you're either going to get a blank stare or some no-name customer you've never heard of. With ours, it's customers like ServiceNow and UPS and Costco that are reporting these types of results. So how are we able to give these types of results? Why are we best in breed? Why are we leader of leaders? Once again, when every vendor is going to stand up and tell you, we have AI too, because ChatGPT came on the scene and overnight, every vendor scrambled to duct tape something resembling AI onto their platform. What we have is an AI engine that has been honed in production for over a decade, since 2014. This would be like you choosing which Waymo am I going to get into. I have one Waymo who I've been told this Waymo, it's running on an AI model that performs 20% better on a driver's ed test than any other student. And it's been trained on the best driver's ed material in the world. And so in theory, it's going to be really good. And then you have a Waymo over here that says, hey, for over a decade, we've been safely driving customers on some of the most difficult, most populous roads in the world. And we're doing it in pristine fashion. That's what makes ours different. So I'll close on this. If any of this is of interest, if you're not a customer, if you're still using controllers, and if anything that I've said has piqued your interest, what I want you to know is this. There is nothing that I've talked about where you would be a beta customer, regardless of your size, your complexity, your vertical. What I want you to know is that the largest companies in the world, they've already standardized on this full cloud networking platform because of the market advantage that it gives them. What I have here, this is the largest retailer in the planet, not just their stores. This is their massive campus too. This isn't like other architectures where you use cloud for your branch locations, but then you use controllers for your real campuses. End-to-end cloud. This is the largest healthcare provider in America. Massive, massive hospitals, not just for Wi-Fi. They use our location. They've given Bluetooth bracelets to their Alzheimer patients. So doors automatically lock and unlock based on their presence. It's that level of accurate and that level of dependable. Largest financial institution in the world by way of assets. Not just all their retail banks, their massive headquarters standardized on our cloud platform. This is my favorite. This is the most valuable company in the world. This is NVIDIA. When NVIDIA, with its endlessly deep pockets, when they did a bake-off with every possible solution, when they looked at every vendor and said, who is going to be the best fit for our new massive spaceship campus, they decided on our platform because it's AI native and it's cloud native. And of every other vendor's solution, it most closely aligned with what NVIDIA sees as the future. Thank you for the time. Hope you have a great rest of the day.